Welcome back to another episode of Ari Squared. We are your hosts, Ari Lev and Ari Berkowitz, coming to you for the second time this week on a Thursday. And man, Ari, does our intro get me hyped? Woo! I'm ready to run through a wall, or more importantly, report this podcast with you. And first things first, Ari, congratulations to you and your Knicks. Wow, what a run. 11 straight wins to get to the finals. Man, am I excited for you. How you feeling, Ari?
Oh, it's quite something, And then there were fewer. I don't know if our listeners know this, but I long talk about the fact that the last time one of the four teams that I root for won anything was June 1994. The Rangers won the Stanley Cup, and I was born in July 1994. So the only team, so I started following the Knicks right after Ewing retired, so I missed the 1999 finals. So this is my first time experiencing the Knicks in the finals. The only team that I've not seen now in the finals is the New York Jets. So that's just the last one that they're just hanging in there. They made it to the championship game 2 straight years during the Rex Ryan era, and they were on the cusp of that comeback against the Steelers that was thwarted very, very late in the game by an unbelievable fourth down play by Roethlisberger. And since then, they have not even sniffed the playoffs. So it's been pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think that you may, I hope for you that you do get to see this in your lifetime, but I am a little doubtful that you are going to see a Jets championship happen in your lifetime. I hope for you that
in my lifetime. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope for you that that's not the case and that you do merit to see it. But yeah, right now I would focus on the team that gives you a chance at a championship, which would be your Knicks. By the way, important to mention, our community is growing. So guys, you can go ahead and find Ari Squared on YouTube. Please go ahead and give us a subscribe. It helps spread the word. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Instagram. And guys, go ahead. If you like what you're hearing, give us a like, give us a share, give us a 5-star rating. And of course, we are loving the feedback coming in. And Ari, why don't you go ahead and address, okay? And we'll start off with this. Can you please explain what you meant about Harbaugh being 1-11 in the last game of the season? That caused some confusion amongst our listeners. So can you please go ahead and clarify what you meant by that?
Oh, in the last game of the playoffs. Last is the playoffs. His last game of the playoffs. That's his record, 1-11.
And can you clarify about the years then in which they did not make the playoffs? Because it was very confusing to some of our listeners.
So I added in a caveat like a couple sentences later, the time that I mentioned that. And basically his record, as anyone who makes the playoffs a lot of times and does not win the Super Bowl, they end their season in a loss. So the years that he did not win the Super Bowl but made it to the playoffs, which was the majority of the seasons with the Ravens, he was 1-11 or 1-12. I can't remember exactly what the record was in the last game of the season.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that clarification, Ari. Much appreciated. And I hope to our listeners that were confused by this, that has now gone ahead and cleared up some of your confusion. All right. So, guys, we are now going to start a cool series, all right, in which we are doing division breakdowns. So, essentially, over the next 8 episodes, we are going to go ahead and do a division breakdown of each of the divisions. We will alternate between AFC and NFC. We're going to go in the order of North, South, West, and East. And we are actually starting off today with the NFC South, which already gives me the opportunity to say, Michael Penix.
All right, there we go. So Ari, what do you think is going down in the NFC South? Given that they were I think the only division that missed both of our lists in entirety. Basically, between our top 10 lists last week, or on Sunday rather, we had at least one representative of every single division between us, except for the NFC South. So that's a good place to start.
Well, and spoiler, we are going to be doing our QB rankings coming up later in this episode. And I don't know about you, but quite frankly, I do not have any of the NFC South QBs on my list either. So I think that already just goes and kind of speaks of the state of this division.
So just off of that, given that I also do not have any quarterbacks from the NFC South in my top 10, who would be your number one quarterback out of the NFC South?
Well, I'll tell you who it's not. Michael Penix. I would have to go. So this is what's interesting. Bryce Young, up and coming, certainly showed improvement last year. I don't know if I can crown him as the best QB in that division. Baker Mayfield is getting old, and he's running with an aggressive style that's going to keep knocking him out of games. So maybe pure talent-wise right now, I would probably lean towards Baker Mayfield, but there's really not one QB in this division that really runs away with it. Tyler Shug, when he got in last year, definitely showed a lot of promise. But again, let's see what happens in year two. Does he have a sophomore slump? Does he really continue to grow off of his success last year? And then that brings us to the Falcons, which both Tua and Michael Penix really do not invoke, much confidence in me. And I know we're going to be ending this segment with a hot take. So I've got a good one on that one. But to answer your question, I would say is right now, just by default, and resume, I guess, I would say if I had to choose, it would be Baker Mayfield. What about you, Ari? Who's your top QB in this division?
So I would have to go with Bryce Young, given not only the talent but the system that he's in. I think that going into year 3 with Dave Canales, I think that they're just going to grow even more. And I wouldn't be surprised if we looked up at the end of the season and Tyler Shug had the best stats out of everyone, out of all 4 quarterbacks. I think that the Baker Mayfield Tampa Bay experiment, whichever one is winding down.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that this is going to be Todd Bowles' last season.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, Bryce Young, I think that part of what makes him fit so well in the Canales system is that they kind of protect him a little bit. So I don't think that he'll have those crazy numbers. And I think Tyler Shug, in the Kellen Moore offense, in the Saints high-flying passing attack, I think that he has a chance to have unbelievable statistical, he'll be a better fantasy quarterback. But I think that Bryce Young is the better quarterback for the time and place. And I do think that on the same level, the Panthers have the best overall system in place, and they will win the division.
Okay, yeah, and I think that if we look at the division overall, like last season, we literally had them duking it out for who is by way of really stupid tiebreaker is going to be the representative of the NFC South in the playoffs. So that just speaks to the level of the division. If I had to rank the teams now, I would probably say it's going to be Panthers, Saints, Bucks, and Falcons. That would be how I would rank the 4 teams currently within the division. And I really just think that they stand a very strong chance of being the worst division in football this season.
The Falcons. Yeah, I totally agree. If I had to pick one team to get the first overall pick in next year's draft, it would be the Atlanta Falcons. So, I do not see them vying for a spot. Obviously, the odds makers still have the Buccaneers ahead of the Panthers and the Saints, but it's very close. And I completely agree with your with your rankings. The one thing that's interesting to me about the Buccaneers is they have a lot of young receivers, and now that they've officially moved away off of Mike Evans, the Jalen McMillan, Emeka Buka, obviously, Emeka Buka, we forget because of his injuries last year. We forget how dang good he was. And the fact that JSN, coming out of a similar situation in this exact same program, broke out when he did, it makes me think that if someone would replicate what JSN did last year, it would be Emeka Buka and not JSN. So like that's a take that what Sam Darnold did last year was unique, and the entire Seattle Seahawks situation was unbelievable. But I do think that if there was anyone to replicate that would be Emeka Buka. And Tez Johnson is there and is a very good young player. Cade Otton is just a very solid tight end that doesn't get talked about enough. So yeah, I do think that it's there. I just saw what Baker Mayfield did in the second half, and I'm like a little bit, concerned overall with what they're capable of doing. Having said that, Kyle Pitts last year, right? Moving to the Falcons for a second. Kyle Pitts last year put up phenomenal numbers. Do you see any chance that can continue next year with Michael Penix and Tua, as opposed to the quarterback situation they had last year? How do you see Kyle Pitts doing, both from a performance perspective and from a fantasy perspective, Ari?
So Kyle Pitts is an interesting one to me. And I feel like up until maybe last season, he was really kind of untapped in terms of somebody figuring out how to go ahead and actually unlock him. And I feel like finally, he was unlocked, last year. He's in a, kind of contract year, just because, yes, they have exercised a 5th-year option, but we know that, he's really playing for his next contract right here. And I think that if we look at the overall quarterback play that we can expect this upcoming season, I think with Kirk Cousins gone, I think it's going to take a step back with a mix of Michael Penix. Yes, I got that for a 3rd time in here. Michael Penix and Tua. I think that the quarterback play is going to go worse. It's going to really come down to him making the most of the targets that he gets and what he can do with them, because I don't think he's going to have very consistent QB play. And I don't think his QBs are going to help him in this, final year of his rookie contract / year. I don't think that they're going to help him. It's really, really going to come down to him taking a step forward, step backwards is really going to come down to the ball's in his hands. What does he do now?
Yeah, I hear. And so pivoting a second to the fact that there have been a number of changes in the division overall. What do you think is the biggest or most noteworthy addition in the NFC South this offseason?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, look, the Panthers are more or less returning their team. They've made some good additions. So I wouldn't say that anything kind of like earth-shattering has happened in the division. The Falcons, again, have taken a step backwards. I don't believe all that much in Kevin Stefanski and the new system that he's going to be running there, to be very honest. And, I was praying and hoping, before the Giants hired Harbaugh, I was worried that we may go ahead and hire Stefanski. And so maybe on paper, Stefanski to the Falcons is the biggest addition. In reality, I don't think it's going to make the kind of impact that it's going to be. I would say is that potentially, if he stays healthy, the biggest addition to the division is going to be Jordan Tyson to the Saints. And if he stays healthy and plays, him and a healthy Jordan Tyson along with Olave in Kellen Moore's offense, and if Tyler Shuck doesn't have a sophomore slump, watch out. Like, he could definitely be in conversation for Rookie of the Year again if he stays healthy. So in summary, my answer is going to be biggest addition to the NFC South, in my opinion, Jordan Tyson getting drafted to the Saints.
I love that. And you throw in the addition of Travis Etienne on top of that. And the Saints offense just looks dynamic like it once did. And if Shug can really step up and play to the level that he played in the second half, who knows? Who knows? I just wanted to speak to the Panthers additions for a second because, it's very interesting what they did. They definitely made big-time additions, right? And they added 2 tackles, Rasheed Walker and Monroe Freeling in the first round.
Yes.
But it's kind of strange what they did on the other hand, because Rasheed Walker had some issue in the offseason with, I can't remember exactly what it was, but he got arrested or detained or something to that extent. And
wait, what? An NFL player got arrested in the offseason? What?
I know it's really shocking, especially for the NFL in the offseason. But be that as it may, so he had some issue come up, and it definitely affected his offseason and his free agency price. And then they signed Devin Lloyd and Jalen Phillips, who are both first-round picks that didn't really live up to the hype until last season. And Devin Lloyd had an unbelievable year and looked unlocked in what's his name? The Jaguars defensive coordinator. I can't think of his name. In his brand new defense, he looked unlocked. And Jalen Phillips, after he was traded to the Eagles, I think led the entire NFL in pressures. So it's very interesting. They paid a lot of money for these players that they looked much better than they ever did at different points last year. And I'm just curious how that all works out. So do you think that the Panthers made smart bets on, these guys all of a sudden have finally matured into who they will be? Or do you think the Panthers severely overpaid and brought in players that, maybe they couldn't really get anyone else? And these were the guys that were interested in coming to the Panthers for a lot of money.
So, that comes down to the question of, you see these players say a lot, oh, I want to win a championship. And then all of a sudden money is thrown at them and off we go. Like, just take Phillips, gets traded to the Eagles midseason. Not that I really think that the Eagles have a Super Bowl contending team this year, but as much as I hate the Eagles, it would be hard to argue saying that if we're talking about chance at a deep playoff run this year, who's more likely? Is it the Eagles or the Panthers? It's the Eagles. So money definitely talks. Do I think that they overpaid him? Yeah, clearly they did. I don't think he was worth $120 million. With that being said, if they can put it all together, let's also not forget that if you look at the Panthers last year, while they were inconsistent in terms of, winning and losing, they either were toe-to-toe with / beat some of the top teams in the NFL last year. So they were not an easy out by any stretch. And if they can really build off of that and utilize and get the most out of the players that they added, I think that there's a chance that they could go ahead and actually win this division. I do, and I'll say this again, I do believe that the division race really is going to be between the Saints and the Panthers. I don't believe that the Falcons, like I said, are definitely finishing fourth. Baker Mayfield, Todd Bowles experiment in Tampa is certainly coming to an end. So yeah, I do think it's a division race between the Panthers and between the Saints, and we'll see what happens. Sorry, in summary, as we wrap up our division roundup here, give me one hot take about the NFC South for this upcoming season.
So, I think that we put it in there with the Falcons getting the first overall pick in the draft. I think that that's definitely the hot take. Or we could even add the fact that we're both advocating for Todd Bowles may not even last the season. But if you really want a hot take, I'd say that I don't know who the third quarterback on the Falcons is. We can check that up. But I'd say that guy is going to start the most games at quarterback for the Falcons. That's my.
You know what's crazy, Ari? You know what's crazy? And for our listeners, we did not discuss this ahead of time. Do you want to know what my hot take for the NFC South is going to be? Mark my words, sooner than later, their third string QB, who I don't know who his name is going to be playing because both Penix and Tua are going to be out because of injury. So great minds here on RE Squared, Ari.
There we go. So yeah, that's the NFC South, everybody. Trevor Siemian is their third string quarterback. So,
God. Oh, hey, former Jet.
Yeah. You know what happens? Ari, you know what happens when you work your Penix a little bit too much? Some simians start to leak out. That's just the issue.
Oh yes. And by the way, that is literally what's going to happen to the Falcons.
That's what I was talking. I don't know where your mind went, but that's
sorry. My bad. Oh, that's great, Ari. That's great. Okay, so that was our NFC South roundup. And we will move on to our next topic from here. Okay. So the next segment we would like to introduce, and Ari Berkowitz is going to take lead on this. We are going to do NFL 101. So some of our listeners have requested, since they are newer at the NFL, and there's all these different coverages and defenses and everything like that, we decided here on RE Squared that we are going to kind of step up and give some explanations. So that way, when you are watching football in this upcoming season in just a few months, you will be able to have a better understanding of when they start throwing things out like cover two. Well, what is cover two and what does that mean? So Ari, I'm going to kick this over to you. So go ahead, NFL 101 coverage edition. Take it away, Ari.
Sounds good, Ari. And we're going to be covering the 4 base coverages of zone defense today, which are covers 1 through 4. And basically, cover 1 means that as everyone knows, all right, the quarterback does not need to be covered. So technically speaking, on defense, there's always one extra guy. And the question is, what does that extra guy do? So for example, in cover 1, every single person is man on man, all right, except for one deep safety who is playing zone, and he has to make a decision if he is going to go in one of 4 directions, either back and to help the second corner, back and to help the first corner, in to help with a slot guy, or in to help with the running back or the tight end, meaning basically in this direction, in this direction, in this direction, in this direction, and he is playing right in what's called center field. That is cover 1. Cover 2, okay, is vastly different, where basically you have the same basic setup, but instead of the safety, the second safety, meaning the strong safety, being in man-to-man coverage on a tight end or a running back, then basically what you have is what's called 2 high safeties instead of single high safety. And you have both safeties. Each one is responsible for 1/2 of the field. So neither has to make more than 2 decisions. So you have to decide if you're going high to help out with the corner, low to help out with a linebacker now who's going to be tasked with facing off against a running back or a tight end or a slot guy, or but those are your only 2 options. So instead of having 4 possibilities, which is a lot for one player to dissect and make sure that he's making the right decision, you have only 2 options for each safety, and I'll have to make a quick decision. Is this going to be a 3-step drop back and therefore a short pass and I should go in? Is this going to be play action? Is this a 7-step drop? Is my cornerback, having an issue with the type of release that the receiver had, and so on and so forth, and dissect and just basically go on what he's understood about the play. So those are the two basic, most basic and common coverages that are not necessarily, like I said, classic zone defenses, because almost everyone on the defense is still man-to-man. Where it really starts to get interesting is something called cover three, which has many different iterations of it. As you understand, cover one and cover two are basically just explaining how many deep safeties there are. Cover three and cover four has nothing to do with the amount of safeties. It's not that you're adding a third safety and have three deep safeties. Rather, you're basically playing what's called a shell defense, where now all of a sudden your cornerbacks are no longer matched up in man-to-man coverage with wide receivers. And you can basically play this in a couple of different ways, where your cornerbacks rather can be playing back off the line, or they can be playing press man coverage. And they're basically, the field is divided into some kind of zone situation in which usually there are three deep men. So one safety will be closer to what's called the box or the line of scrimmage. And you'll basically be having a situation where you have three players playing back, your two starting corners, one on each side, and one of the safeties. That basically, this takes away the intermediate to deep plays happening. That's the idea behind cover three. And one of the most interesting parts about cover three is that it's basically gone by the wayside in the NFL today. And Sean McVay and then Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur afterwards started attacking this by playing a lot of three tight ends and having them run basically right in the middle of where all of these zones would be, and attacking the exact concept in which a cover three defense would almost completely nullify what they would be trying to do. And then cover four, finally, is basically a coverage in which each one of the defensive backs, as in the two safeties and the two corners, are each responsible for 1/4 of the field. And this is also called quarters for obvious reasons. And if you can envision the field, so basically you have 1, 2, 3, 4 quadrants of the field, and each one of those guys is responsible for that field. Obviously, one of the most famous plays for busting this coverage, is called the post, because you have a wide receiver running that way and that way, which then bisects the quarters, and then it causes confusion between if the defensive back responsible for the boundary side of the zone or the defensive back responsible for the middle part of the zone is the one that's supposed to be covering that receiver. That we will get into more next week or in a later week. Those are coverages 5 through 8, the Nick Saban, Vic Fangio special, and we'll get into all of that. First, before we get into that, we will definitely want to talk a little bit more about zone versus man coverage, and a little bit about base defense versus nickel packages and dime packages. And so we'll get into all of that. You have to understand that before you get into covers 5 through 8 anyway. So we'll make sure to break it down as best as we can. Obviously, we don't want to make this into a whole X's and O's strategy session, but still trying to keep it explanatory. I guess that would be the word. I had something else in my head, but I think I've just been talking for too long, and I've just been listening to myself talking. And so, Ari, please help me out here and say anything.
You got it. All right. So I do have 2 follow-up questions, and thank you for your explanation there. Question number 1 would be, is, in your opinion, of the 4 coverages that you have mentioned, covers 1 through 4, which of those would be ideal to best contain a dual threat quarterback, such as, let's say, Lamar Jackson, who is absolutely just as much of a threat with his legs that he is his hands? Which of these 4 coverages, in your opinion, would be the one that you would run most successfully against a dual threat quarterback?
That's a great question. And basically, it's not about the coverage that is assigned. Except I'd say that everything except for cover 3, because that basically puts the most onus on the linebackers. But cover 1, 2, and 4 are agnostic to quarterbacks' running abilities. It would be basically more of, does this team have more possession receivers or deep threats? Do they like to run more play action? And what they like to do in short yardage situations versus when they have 5 to plus yards to what's the word? To achieve? I don't even know. Words are failing me right now. So basically, most of these systems, I'd say, except for cover 3, are quarterback agnostic in terms of if they're, dual threat or single threat quarterbacks. But what most teams like to do when there is a dual threat quarterback is have one linebacker or one safety assigned as what's called the spy, to spy on those quarterbacks, which then takes him out of the entire coverage scheme and doesn't usually allow for cover 1, which would be one safety deep, but you can still play cover 1. You would just have less pass rushers. So it's always the ebb and flow between how many pass rushers you want to send, what a blitz is, and we will talk about all of that nice stuff later, but these are really what's called the coverage shells of understanding NFL coverages, especially in terms of zone versus man.
All right, excellent. And final question for you, Ari, before we move on to our next segment. My question is there a single coach that created each of these coverages that you can tell us about? Meaning, is there a certain coach that started one of these or some of these? Can you elaborate just a little bit on that for our listeners?
That is a great question. I think that basically the concepts themselves have existed for a very long time. Since very early on in football, I'd say before the Super Bowl. And then their evolutions have kind of, been touched on by specific coaches, like Chuck Noll is very famous for revitalizing cover 2. Tony Dungy, again, 30 years later with Lane Kiffin's dad, Monty Kiffin in Tampa Bay, were famous for what's called the Tampa 2, where they really changed around exactly the roles of each person and what they were doing within the zone coverage shell of, 2 high safeties. They basically changed it to having an athletic middle linebacker covering one of the receivers or tight ends, and going very deep and dropping into the deep zone instead of a safety, which then frees up, basically was John Lynch then, to do all kinds of crazy things. And they would have their cornerbacks in zone coverage as opposed to having man coverage. So they really changed around. And when I say zone coverage, why is that not cover 4? Well, their corners were in the shallow zone. So they would basically be covering the wide receivers up to 10 yards. And they completely changed what that is. So as a concept of shell defenses, I think that at the very least, covers 1 and 2 have existed since, the beginning of football. And then the evolution and revolution of a lot of these defenses have, and they continue till today. Pete Carroll, when he first came into the NFL, he brought cover 3 into the NFL. He's like, guys, no one's doing this. This is sick. And he basically won a Super Bowl based off of cover 3 and kept on injecting 5th to 7th round picks into a defense that only he knew which players fit in, and it completely revolutionized the NFL back till now, where no one runs cover 3 anymore. And the last 2 years of Pete Carroll's tenure in Seattle and then in Oakland, in Las Vegas, he stopped running cover 3. So, these things always are cyclical. But the original creator of them, I do not know.
Okay. All right. So to our listeners, if you know who the original creators of these coverages were, please go ahead and let us know, and we'll be happy to share it with everyone else. Guys, by the way, this is a segment, like I mentioned, we will be running. And when we are done on the defensive side of the ball, we will turn it on over to offense and start talking about the different personnel types, where you hear, what is a 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 13 personnel. What does this all mean? And our main goal here at RE Squared is to cover, no pun intended, all of these things so that when we get to the new season, for the newer to the NFL listeners amongst us here in the RE Square community, you will have a much better idea of what the TV broadcasters are talking about when you hear these things being thrown around. So that was our NFL 101 Coverage Edition segment. And now, since you guys loved our top 10 power rankings last week, we got a lot of really good feedback about that. We have decided to continue with the trend, and we will be continuing with this trend, which brings us to our top 10 QB rankings. Now, what we're going to do is that unlike we did last week, where we went 10-1, we've actually broken it down into tiers. So we have tier 1, which would be who we think are our elite quarterbacks. We have tier 2, which we have titled franchise guys. And then we have our lowest tier, which is, kind of high-end, volatile, could be awesome, could be not so awesome. And so we're going to start from there. So Ari, let's go ahead and we will work our way like we did last week. Let's go from bottom up. So we will start with our tier 3 QBs. We have 3 of them each. We, again, to all of our listeners, we do not know which QBs each of us has put on this list. So Ari, without further ado, give me your bottom 3 quarterbacks in the top 10. Go ahead.
Wait, so I thought you said 3 each, but we were supposed to have 10 guys.
Yes, we know. We do have 10 overall. I have 10 people in this category. I have 3 in tier 3. I have 4 in tier 2. And then I have 3 in tier 1. So just making sure that we have the same number of QBs in each tier.
Oh, I actually have the same as you. Okay, fine.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. Okay. All right, so let's start again. We are starting at the bottom, working our way up. Ari, who is in your tier 3 quarterbacks? Go ahead.
So I have Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, and Sam Darnold as my 8 through 10. You can debate exactly how you order it. I would have Goff at 10, Prescott at 9, and Sam Darnold at 8. But basically, Jared Goff, I think that he's the new, I don't know, Phillip Rivers, but there's this quarterback that's just, you look at him at the end of the year, and every season his numbers are just top 7. And it's just really impressive. And then you watch him play, and you're just like, this not like doing it for me. But he's just, I think that he's significantly better than what people think that he is. And so Jared Goff to me is a key name to mention. Dak Prescott looked like a different quarterback with Brian Schottenheimer, and he was just absolutely phenomenal. I've been on the record as saying Dak Prescott is one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch play. And so I'm happy to include him here in the top 10, even though toward the end. And Sam Darnold, he had his ups and downs through the course of the season, but when it really mattered, he really turned it on, and he clearly his game is just elevated to a different level. And I'm very curious to see next year. He's 8 because, or he's in that tier 3 because if he slightly slides back this year to what he had been doing before, he will be out of the top 10. And if he continues to cement that status, he could be a borderline top 5 quarterback going forward. So Ari, you tell me, who is your tier 3?
So this is going to be wild. And again, to our listeners, we did not coordinate this. Neither of us has any clue who is on our list. I, too, have Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, and Sam Darnold in my tier 3. And you can look at my screen. It is Jared Goff at number 10, Dak Prescott at number 9, and Sam Darnold at number 8.
That's
pretty wild. I agree with all of your takes on everything. And as much as it pained me to put a Dallas Cowboys QB on this list, yeah, you can't argue with what the guy is able to do. I am truly hoping that, like he does annually, he will choke and disappear in the playoffs like he always does, because that is what Dak Prescott brings to the table. But yes, I agree with you on all the takes. Jared Goff is definitely Phillip Rivers-esque. Dak Prescott, again, great regular season QB. Postseason QB, not as much. And yes, Sam Darnold, I agree that if he can truly continue to build off of what he did 2 seasons ago in Minnesota, what he did last year with the Seahawks, including winning a Super Bowl, if he can go ahead and build another strong season where they have 10-plus wins and get into the playoffs, I definitely think we can actually start talking about Sam Darnold as a top 7, if not top 5 QB. So I agree with you on there. And since we're in agreement, we can move on to our middle tier. So in our middle tier, and I'll actually go first on this one since you went last time. In our middle tier, which we have titled Franchise QBs, I have, and I'm going bottom up, I have Justin Herbert clocking in at number 7, Drake May at number 7. I've got Lamar Jackson coming in at, wait, I messed up the numbers here. Coming in at number 7, is Justin Herbert. Coming in at number 6 is Drake May. Number 5 would be Lamar Jackson. And number 4 would be Joe Burrow. And the reason I've gone with this list is Justin Herbert. He's really good in that regular season, but I need to see him win a playoff game for me to really, view him as anything more than a franchise quarterback. In terms of Drake May, what happened to him in the Super Bowl, yes, we can say it was injury, or maybe it wasn't. This year will tell. Is he really the QB that we all think he is, which would vaunt him up into the top 5? Or is he going to take a step back, and which will no longer be able to use the excuse of injury? Lamar Jackson, there's no question. His dual threat ability is something that we've never seen before, as much as we've seen other dual threats QB, as much as we see that dual threat QBs are becoming more and more common. Even with that, Lamar Jackson is certainly at the top of his game over there. But for me, Lamar Jackson, this is kind of a make it or break it season. And what I mean by that is, I know I saw your eyebrows go out. For those people who are only listening, not watching, the reason I say that is that Lamar Jackson needs to prove 2 things to me this season. Number 1 is that he can actually stay healthy for all 17 games, something that he has not been able to do. And number 2, he needs to actually win a playoff game, or more than one playoff game. He needs to do that to really step forward. I feel like as much as we've got Sam Darnold, where the debate is him falling out or staying in the top 10, Lamar Jackson is just as much in that category, if not more so, because at the end of the day, Sam Darnold did go ahead and win a Super Bowl, which Lamar Jackson hasn't. Finally, Joe Burrow. There's no question that if you look at what he's been able to do, the guy's gone to a Super Bowl, and if his defense can give him some help, if Zach Taylor can get them off to a quicker start than they normally have been, we could be talking about Joe Burrow in absolute elite status come next season. So those are my tier 2 quarterbacks, Ari. Did lightning strike twice? Do we have this? No, you're nodding your head no. So
no,
who are in your tier 2
not.
QBs? Talk to me, Ari.
So Justin Herbert is not even in my top 10.
Oh, okay.
I love Justin Herbert. I love watching him play. But just the past few years, you look at his numbers and you're like, I'm not so sure. And so I wanted to play with you. I wanted to play a game with you, Ari. And that's Justin Herbert or Jacoby Brissett. Okay. One of them, their completion percent. Okay. So one guy, completion percentage, 64.9%, 3,366 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. The other one had 66.4% completion percentage, 3,700 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. Which one was Justin Herbert and which one was Jacoby Brissett? And before you answer, the fact that we can play this game is exactly why Justin Herbert is not in my top 10.
All right, and that's very fair. If I had to guess, it was Jacoby Brissett was the first one you mentioned. And Justin Herbert was the second.
That is 100% correct. Either Jacoby Brissett is much better than we think he is, which I think that is the case. But I also think that no one is going to be making the argument for Jacoby Brissett to be a top 10 quarterback, and therefore Justin Herbert just misses out after a few years. And listen, the guy's talent is undeniable. You still got that guy in there who a few years ago just blew everyone in the NFL out the water. The Chargers need to make sure their offensive line can protect Justin Herbert. It all starts from there. So please, Mike McDaniel, Jim Harbaugh, get this figured out so we can put Justin Herbert back as a borderline top 5 quarterback and not just missing my top 10. So with that being said, I got Jordan Love at number 7, Joe Burrow at number 6, Lamar Jackson at number 5, and Matthew Stafford at number 4. Those are my middle 4 guys. So Jordan Love, I mean, I think that what he did in the second half last year, again, we talked about it last week. I think it just looks like a quarterback on the cusp of just, becoming elite. Joe Burrow, I mean, he could be top 3 if not for the health, like you mentioned. Same with Lamar Jackson. I don't think it's quite a make or break season, but I do think that he'd, move to the latter half of the top 10 if he cannot pull this out or is frankly just injured again. And that's really the story with all of the quarterbacks here with Herbert for you and Burrow and Jackson. We just want to see them healthy. And then Matthew Stafford as my number 4 guy. He's just – his numbers are unreal for someone at his age. He had an unbelievable renaissance year next year. I don't expect him to replicate that exactly, which basically bumps him into the first guy in the second tier as opposed to the last guy in the first tier for me. But that's where Matthew Stafford is. He is so freaking good. He is so much fun to watch. The way that he is his talent as a quarterback with his arm is next level, and he's so cerebral in the way that he plays the quarterback position. He's just one of the greatest, and he will go down as such, and he will be I believe the only first overall quarterback Hall of Famer in the last 20 odd years. We'll see if that changes, in the recent draft. But I don't think that there have been anyone worthy. Eli Manning, you're giving me that face, and then it's like Eli.
And what about Peyton Manning?
No, but I'm saying he was in the 90s. But yeah, Eli Manning is definitely there as well.
Fair. Yes, he was drafted in 98.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger.
No. I mean 1-1.
Oh, okay. Fair. Okay.
Yeah. It's just been a terrible 25 or so years of 1-1 quarterbacks, and there have been a lot of them. And the best of them have been, kind of like the Sam Bradfords rather, as opposed to. But, basically in a 25-year period to have just Matthew Stafford and Eli Manning as the only viable or the only Hall of Fame level quarterbacks as the 1-1 pick, it's pretty crazy. And that's what I was trying to say. So there you go.
All right, excellent. All right, Ari. So am I doing my top 3 if we're going back and forth?
Let's go back. Let's break it down. Let's do 3, 2, 1 now. So you can start with your number 3, and then I'll go with my number 3.
All right, excellent. Love it. All right, clocking in at number 3 for me is Matthew Stafford. Guy had a MVP season last year. They are always right up in the mix of can they go to / win the Super Bowl. He is playing lights out. They can teach classes on how to be a number 1 QB for so many aspects of his game. And at this point, it's becoming second nature. And so I believe that there's no reason to think that Matthew Stafford won't replicate what he did this past year. There's no reason to think that why Matthew Stafford can't be in MVP, conversations again this coming season. And that's why, for me, beyond everything else that you already said about him, which I agree with, that's why he's number 3 for me. Who do you have at number 3?
I have Drake May as my number 3 quarterback. I think that beside for the fact that he led his team to the Super Bowl in his second season, his numbers last year are just crazy. And considering the fact that, again, he was not only in his second year and in a brand new offensive system, but his receiving core was I don't know. I would say that it was like pretty much Diggs and Booty. And that was your situation there. Obviously, Demario Douglas was there too, and you have the interesting tight ends, but overall, it wasn't so amazing. You look at most of the other guys that we're talking about, and they have 2 to 3 better receiving options than Drake May. And again, he's just so young. He's really developed. Like, that's what I look at. Like, from college to now, he's just gone through this development, and I just think that Drake May has that chance to be a perennial MVP candidate quarterback, and he's just starting out. So that's who I have as my number 3 option, my number 3 ranked guy.
All right, clocking in at number 2 for me is Josh Allen. We need to see the dude. I would, I'll say it like this. I would love to see him go to the Super Bowl. And unless it's against the Giants, I would like to see him win the Super Bowl. He's paid his dues. The time has come. Josh Allen also happens to be one of the biggest mentions off the field as well. He is an absolute stud. And, given the fact that there were some question marks, especially of his, completion percentage abilities coming into the NFL and what he's since been able to do. So really, I would love to see Josh Allen go ahead and win the big game, unless it's against the Giants, in which case I hope that history repeats itself like it did in the Super Bowl in 1990, the first Super Bowl that I watched. I truly hope that it's Josh Allen's year, and he is definitely worthy of the number 2 spot here. He is an incredible QB, and with or without ever winning a Super Bowl, he is a future Hall of Famer.
So, it's really fascinating to me. And one of the biggest digs on Josh Allen over the earlier part of his career is his completion percentage. And then after that, it became about interceptions.
Yep.
And it's fascinating because from 21 to 23, he averaged 16 interceptions a year. In the last 2 years, he's had a total of 16 interceptions. So, like, that is phenomenal progress. And just, it was so fun to see Josh Allen being able to be the quarterback of a team that has a running game. And that was such a different, he was able to really mature, I believe, as a what they call like a field general. That's like the terminology that they like to use. I think that he was really able to mature as a field general, and not just as a talent at quarterback. And I'm root as much as the Bills are in the Jets division, and whatever, they're the Bills, and Josh Allen is the best thing to happen to Buffalo in years. And I would very much like to see him win one. And but he is not my number 2 quarterback. My number 2 quarterback is Patrick Mahomes. I just cannot put him number 1 after the injury that he had in his knee, and I'm sure that he'll be completely fine. But I also think that that's just enough for me to have put Josh Allen ahead of him in my rankings. And as much as I wanted to put Drake May number 1, I just decided that given Allen and Mahomes' track records, they have to take precedence. And so obviously you have Patrick Mahomes number 1. So Ari, please tell us why you looked past the knee injuries and decided anyway to put Mahomes number 1.
All right, so on the top, I'll start with the knee injury, actually. The dude's back on the field. And he looks great. This isn't just like social media hype and like he's still injured, but like the dude is a robot, okay? If we've been calling Wemby an alien, Mahomes might actually be an alien. And yes, he's wearing a brace to protect that knee, but my God, the dude is moving and he doesn't look like he has lost the step at all. And if you look at what he has achieved so far in his career, having gone to 5 Super Bowls, won 3 already, and if you even stack up his career thus far versus Brady's career over the same tenure, and Mahomes arguably is having a better start to his career than Brady did, which is wild. And we've already spoken at length to how things have gone with the comparisons between Brady and Allen's careers, up and including when we had ACL injuries and everything like that. But there's nobody in the NFL at the QB position today that I can say is a better QB than Patrick Mahomes. And that's why he is the number 1 on my list. And he would have to literally fall off a cliff or never play another, down of football in order for anybody in the NFL on this list already or not to unseat him as the number 1 QB. And it's not even close. So Ari, your take.
No, I mean, that's great. Like I said, I only bumped him down slightly because I just I gotta see it. I gotta see how he recovers from this knee injury. Just like with Brady the year after he came back from his knee, he wasn't exactly the same Brady. That's just what I'm expecting from Mahomes this year, and I do believe that it's going to be part of his maturation and progression as a quarterback, but I want to see that first before I'm going to be anointing him again. Like he's 1B to Josh Allen's 1A, and that's with all the question marks. So I don't really see us differing here. The Chiefs are going to be the Chiefs next year, like no doubt in my mind. So with that being said, wrapping up our top 10 QBs, Ari, I believe that it's time for our segment of Guess That Number. Okay.
Woo! Guess That Number is brought to you by We Don't Yet Have a Sponsor.
Oh, we love
like
those
to
people.
Be one, you could be the sponsor of this segment.
And so last week we started off and you gave me your number and I gave you my number.
Yep.
Before we even give any clues, do you want to try to guess just off cuff at mine? Because I definitely want to guess off cuff on yours.
So, I mean, here's the question, right? We want to the obvious one would be Tom Brady, right? But I don't think you went with Tom Brady, right? If I had to guess, given your sports almanac and how you are like old school and back in the day, I would have to say is that I think that there is if I had to guess, because it's an out there, I think it would be Bob Greasy with the Miami Dolphins is the guy you went with the number 12.
So
am I right?
So that is such an awesome guess, but I have like Rachmanis on you, Ari, and I'm not going to go with anyone that didn't play in our lives. That's just crazy. Maybe when we get down the line and we've done so many of these, we have to branch out a bit. But for the time being, they're going to be people that we sat in front of the TV and saw them perform and perform well. It's not going to be like I mentioned to you yesterday, Corey LeCurker, who really was an offensive lineman in the NFL at one point in time. There's not going to be anyone like that. And as much as I loved watching that Dolphins offense with Bob Greasy and I think it was Larry Sonka, I'm not going to be throwing anyone like that at you. So I hope that you didn't do the same for me with the 37 and it's not some old crusty giant guy from the 50s. My guess was Rodney Harrison because that's the only guy famous enough that wore 37 that I could think of.
No, it is not Rodney Harrison.
Oh, man.
But you definitely know who this player is.
So I was thinking, I was just like, I don't know many other guys that have worn number 37 except for maybe in the early 2000s. In the early 2000s, there are a number of defensive backs that wore number 37. But as football numbers go, it is not a very common number.
I know, and that's why I went with it. And if you don't get it, you're gonna be like, ah.
No, I hear. So let's as I mentioned to you earlier in the week, my football almanac is not currently off online.
It's rebooting.
It is,
buffering.
But it is in recovery mode, and I'm a little bit better, definitely, than I was yesterday. So let's give it a try, Ari. What's going to be your first clue for me guessing 37?
Okay, so the first clue would be is that he played on the defensive side of the ball.
That's what I was saying before. I was convinced that he's a defensive back in the early 2000s. Is
in
that
terms of eras? While he did start his career at the end of the 80s, he played through the 90s and even into the beginning of 2000. Any idea?
I'm trying to think. I can't remember if Steve Atwater he wore 27, not 37. Okay, so Steve Atwater, who played from the late 80s and then until 99, was one of them. Is it one of the Woodsons?
It is not one of the Woodsons.
Wow. Late 80s until the early 2000s. Again, a defensive back.
A defensive back.
Not one of the Woodsons.
Nope.
That is okay. So let me get one more clue now.
Okay. All right. Another clue would be, and this may give it away. Famously, before he was drafted, a certain team wanted to bring him in for a visit, to which he asked what number they were picking, to which he responded, "I have no interest in coming to visit you because I will not be on the board by then."
Oh, wow. That does not give it away. Wait. Okay, wait. This was just very confusing to me. Okay. Wait, are you talking? Is this Deion Sanders?
Ding, 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 ding. Yes, it is.
He only wore 37 for like a second in his career.
Yes, he did. After retiring in 2000 with the Washington, back then Redskins, when he came out of retirement and played for the Baltimore Ravens, he purposely chose to wear number 37 to let everybody know what his age was and what he was doing. So it was Deion Sanders, and he wore number 37 with the Baltimore Ravens.
So that's crazy. That was, I mean, until you said the second one, I would have never gotten that without that. You know, I was like, that's famous. My first thought was there two guys who said that? Because I know Deion Sanders wore number 21. So then, but then I remembered I actually went to see Deion Sanders in the Meadowlands when he was in Baltimore. So that was cool. My memory is that he scored a touchdown, but I don't.
Yes, in very good against the Buffalo Bills in Week 7 in 2004. He did get his 9th career interception return touchdown.
So I was yeah. Anyways, that was awesome. That was awesome. It violates one of the two rules that we mentioned last week, but that was awesome.
Why? Oh, because
it has to be the number that he's most famous for wearing.
Sorry.
No, it was still very fun for me. It was, he's such a famous guy that we can make exceptions in these kinds of cases, especially with the clues that you were giving. So that was good. But yeah, so that's so my number 12. So the first clue is that he played on offense but was not a quarterback.
Played on offense and was not a quarterback. Okay. Is he still playing in the NFL today?
No, his era was from the late 2000s to the mid to late 2010s. That was his era. Yeah.
12. 12. Okay, so it's definitely that takes out all the QBs. I definitely know who he is.
Absolutely. There's no question that you know who he is.
Number 12. Okay, it's not a running back. It would have to be a wide receiver, most likely. Because off the top of my head, I can't even think of a running back that has worn a number. You're smiling, so maybe it is a running back.
It's just interesting because I specifically said a player because while this player was most famous for being a wide receiver, he's famous for doing the initial Deebo Samuel before Deebo Samuel. And he would take snaps in the backfield as a primary running back. So his main position was wide receiver, but he did take snaps in the backfield, especially after a very famous teammate was injured that year and at running back.
Did he play for the Pats?
No, he did not play for the Patriots. Should I give you my second clue?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So while he was most famous for wearing 12 at the team that he was drafted for, he went on to wear multiple other numbers in different spots, but none of them were as iconic as his original drafted number 12.
Is it Marquise Colston?
Marcus Colston? I don't even think he played for anyone beside for the Saints.
Okay, so you're saying he's gone on to wear.
He played for 3 other teams and wore different numbers for all those 3 teams and never the number 12. All for different reasons.
Huh. And
basically,
again, what era is this?
For example, I'll just give you an example. So he went to the Jets and was on the Jets for a year, and he couldn't wear number 12 because number 12 is retired. So after the Vikings, I just said
was it Percy Harvin?
Yes. It was Percy Harvin. I just said the Vikings, so I'm happy you got it. Because I was going to say after the Vikings, he went to 2 teams that had the number 12 retired and therefore couldn't wear it. And then once he got used to that, I think that Buffalo also has number 12 retired. That's what Jim Kelly wore.
Yeah.
So the last 3 teams that he played for, the number 12 was retired. So he was never actually able to wear number 12 again. But he will always be number 12 to me. That is Percy Harvin, who for whatever reason always was thought of better than his statistical production was, but he was so freaking dynamic and exciting to watch.
Yes, he was. I remember his kickoff returns were electric.
Punt returns.
Electric. That's what he was kind of famous for, and to start off, I believe was more of his kick returns than even what he did as a wide receiver.
He was just in his first year in the NFL, he had almost 1,200 return yards and 2 kick return touchdowns. And he was the offensive rookie of the year, having had another 800 yards receiving and 135 yards rushing. So the guy put up over 2,000 all-purpose yards in his rookie season. And again, with the combination of that kick returning ability and the fact that he did run the ball and he did catch passes, he was basically the original Deebo Samuel in an era that position really didn't exist.
Okay, excellent. All right, so that was who wore that number. And Ari, are you ready to pick your number for next episode?
Oh, it's definitely going to be Bob Greasy. I mean, how could I not do that? You start so I can think of someone who I'd like to do that again isn't like super random and crazy because that's just not fun for anyone.
Okay, so I am going with the highest number a player could possibly wear in the NFL. So I am going with 99.
Oh, nice. That is awesome. So I am going to go with number 78.
Ooh, 78. Okay. Okay. All right. So locking that in, I selected number 99 and you already selected number 78. Okay.
Yes,
So I'm
and if
excited to see what you have in store for me.
any of our followers and listeners have any inklings as to who either of us could be talking about, please comment and leave us some kind of guess. We'd love to see if you could just guess it. And we can even start publishing our clues earlier on if you're interested in that. So just let us know and keep guessing, and let's keep the fun going.
All right. So, Ari, on that, let's go ahead and wrap up this episode of Ari Squared. Before we do that, what would be, I wanted us to each do, what is the biggest, I would say, we did the top 10 QB rankings. What would be the thing that stands out to you most about either something that characterizes the QBs on this list or about people who didn't make the list? Or another hot take in general about the top 10 QBs.
So what was shocking to me is how many guys I had a hard time leaving off my top 10 list. That was the most shocking part to me. I had two guys that when I first put the list down, I was like, these guys have to be in the top 10, and one of them was Justin Herbert, and then they just didn't end up making the top 10. And I had to rationalize it to myself with the Jacoby Brissett thing, but it still doesn't sit right with me. And then just like Jalen Hurts didn't even come to mind for my top 10. Caleb Williams, I mean, he should have been at the top. So just the amount of guys, and I guess this is something interesting. The top 10 grouping overall, it's like there is an absurd amount of super talented young QBs now. There is an absurd amount of super talented QBs who were injured for all of last year. And there are some really good veterans all playing at the same time. And someone we didn't even mention, like Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy could be top 5 in every single quarterback number next season. He wasn't in our top 5. So, I mean, the level of quarterback production in the NFL is just going through the roof, in my opinion. And we may be sitting on the cusp of an era of some of the best quarterback play maybe ever, when we're talking about, Tyler Shugg, who I don't know if he would make my top 25, and he could have top 10 fantasy production next year.
Agreed. What stood out to me most about our list, and specifically about who didn't make the list, is how many QBs that are making $50+ million a year did not even crack the top 10. And just to name a few, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, and there are more. And they're all making $50+ million a year, and they're not even on the top 10. And if we're talking about average salaries, let's think of the fact that you and I both had Dak Prescott ranked as number 9, and he is the highest paid QB in the league. So we've spoken a lot about, QB play and, first round pick QBs just not playing up to their level. And, Dak Prescott is a classic example of that, of where the dude's making $60+ million a year, and he did not get above either of our number 9 rankings. I think consensusly across the NFL, if you polled people and asked people, do they believe that Dak Prescott is a top 5 QB? And I don't think you're going to get a consensus answer that yes, that he is. And just
you get a consensus that he isn't if you asked anywhere that isn't Texas.
Correct. Agreed. And what's interesting is, and just, kind of going off of what you said there for a moment about all this young talent, and I'll throw Jackson Dart's name in there as well, we may suddenly see the top 10 QBs after the season gets shuffled from the top 10 that we put here now, and the people taking their place are not going to be the Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrences of the world, but rather those up-and-comers, whether it's potentially Jackson Dart or if
Cam
it's
Ward.
Tyler Shugg or Cam Ward.
Fernando Mendoza,
absolutely. And so Caleb Williams, for that matter. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this list looks next year.
So Ari, how many? Okay, so I was thinking, we not only about what you mentioned, but just to piggyback for a second, there's Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, and Tua Tagovailoa, who I don't know if they're making exactly $50 million a year, but somewhere in the 40+ range. I don't even think they'd be in my top 25 quarterbacks in the NFL. And that is so I thank you for bringing that up about the salary part of the quarterback equations. It is fascinating.
All right, Ari. So with that, we are going to bring this edition of Ari Squared to a close. I hope you and all enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed recording. Reminder again, guys, go ahead, give us a subscribe on YouTube. Go ahead, hit that share button, hit that like button, give us a 5-star review, share it on your social medias, and let's all together continue to grow the Ari Squared community to something even bigger and even better. On behalf of both of us here on Ari Squared, peace. We out.